You've felt it before. The sudden shift, the cold change in someone's behavior, the delayed reply, the shorter messages, the subtle disrespect. And almost instantly, something inside you reacts. You start checking your phone more. You replay conversations in your head. You wonder what you did wrong. You try to fix it. You send another message. You explain yourself more clearly. You become slightly more available, slightly more accommodating, slightly more eager. And without realizing it, you start chasing. What you don't see is this. The moment you start chasing, you lose leverage. And the moment you stop chasing, they start panicking. This isn't about playing games. It's about understanding a psychological dynamic that almost nobody talks about. Because most people think attraction, respect, and power come from effort, from showing you care, from proving your value. But in reality, over-pursuit triggers the opposite response. It lowers perceived value. It removes mystery. It removes tension. And tension is what keeps people psychologically invested. Think about the last time someone pulled away from you. Maybe it was a romantic interest. Maybe a friend. Maybe even a boss who suddenly seemed less responsive. What did you do? Most likely, you leaned in. You tried harder. You sought reassurance. You attempted to close the distance. That reaction feels natural. It feels logical. If something is slipping away, grab it tighter. But human psychology doesn't reward grabbing. It rewards scarcity. When you chase, you signal something without realizing it. You signal that you are more invested than they are. You signal that losing them would hurt you more than losing you would hurt them. And the human brain constantly calculates value based on perceived loss. Whoever fears losing more holds less power. This is not cruelty. This is subconscious social mathematics. Here's where it gets deeper. Modern life has amplified this dynamic. Social media, instant messaging, read receipts, online status indicators. They've turned relationships into micro-power negotiations happening every hour. When someone doesn't reply immediately, your brain fills in the silence. When they post but don't respond, your nervous system reads it as rejection. And rejection activates the same pain centers as physical injury. So you react. You chase to stop the pain. But chasing never solves the pain. It reinforces it. The real problem isn't that they pulled away. The real problem is that your sense of stability is tied to their response. And that creates emotional dependency. Once someone senses dependency, consciously or not, their urgency decreases. Because urgency is fueled by uncertainty. If they know you're not going anywhere, the tension dissolves. And without tension, there's no psychological pressure. This is why the moment you stop chasing feels so uncomfortable. Because it forces you to sit in uncertainty. It forces you to tolerate silence. It forces you to resist the urge to reach out, to clarify, to explain. But here's the turning point. The moment you stop chasing, the dynamic shifts. Silence creates space. Space creates doubt. Doubt creates curiosity. And curiosity creates pursuit. When you pull back, their brain begins asking questions. Why did they stop? Are they losing interest? Did I miscalculate? Are they talking to someone else? The same anxiety you felt when they pulled away now starts activating in them. Not because you manipulated them, but because uncertainty re-enters the equation. There's a psychological principle at play here known as reactance. When people feel they are losing access to something they assumed was available, they experience a motivational surge to regain it. But this only happens when access actually feels uncertain. If you continue to chase, There's no threat of loss, no urgency, no reactance. Now let's be honest, this isn't easy, because stopping the chase means confronting your own fear of abandonment. It means acknowledging that part of you seeks validation through responsiveness. And that's the deeper issue. The chase is rarely about the other person. It's about what their attention represents: approval, worth, security, control. When you stop chasing, you're not trying to trigger panic in them. You're reclaiming emotional autonomy in yourself. And that shift alone changes everything. Imagine this scenario. You've been texting someone consistently. Suddenly they become distant. Old you would double text. Ask if everything's okay. Try to revive the energy. New you notices the shift and does nothing. You continue your routine. You invest in your work. You go to the gym. You meet friends. You don't perform indifference. You embody it. Days pass. And eventually, they reach out. The energy is different. There's more enthusiasm, more engagement. Why? Because your absence reintroduced uncertainty. But here's the crucial distinction. If you stop chasing as a tactic while obsessively waiting for their reaction, you're still chasing internally. The shift must be genuine. It must come from the decision that your emotional state is not dependent on their behavior. This is where most people fail. They pull back for 48 hours, but mentally they are spiraling. They check notifications constantly. They analyze every story view. That's not detachment. That's suppressed chasing. True non-chasing is redirecting focus back to your own life so fully that whether they respond becomes secondary. And ironically, that is what makes you more attractive, more respected, and more powerful. Let's escalate this further. This dynamic doesn't only apply to dating. It applies to friendships. If you're always the one initiating plans, always the one checking in, always the one keeping the connection alive, you slowly train others to invest less. Humans adapt to effort. If you overfunction, they underfunction. But when you reduce effort to balanced levels, the system recalibrates. It applies in work environments too. If you constantly seek approval from a superior, over-explain your decisions, or chase validation after minor feedback, you position yourself as dependent on their praise. But when you operate calmly, deliver results, and don't over-pursue reassurance, you project self-trust. And self-trust commands respect. Now here's the paradox. The goal isn't to make them panic. The goal is to stop panicking yourself. Because panic leads to overexposure. Overexposure reduces perceived value. And reduced value shifts the dynamic. When you stop chasing, 3 things happen. First, you regain emotional clarity. Without the constant urge to reach out, your thinking stabilizes. You start evaluating the situation more objectively. You may even realize their pullback revealed incompatibility you were ignoring. Second, you restore balance. If they care, they will meet you halfway. If they don't, their silence gives you information instead of confusion. Third, you strengthen self-respect. And self-respect radiates in ways you can't fake. But let's address the fear directly. What if I stop chasing and they never come back? Then you've saved yourself months or years of one-sided investment. The chase often prolongs dynamics that are already dying. By stopping, you accelerate truth. And truth, even when uncomfortable, is power. There's a moment that defines this shift. It's usually late at night. You want to send the message. You want to close the gap. And you pause. You put the phone down. You choose yourself instead. That single decision, repeated over time, rewires your identity. You move from reactive to grounded, from anxious to centered, and something subtle happens. People sense it. They sense when your attention is no longer easily accessible. They sense when your energy is not chasing approval. And that subtle shift alters how they treat you. Let's go even deeper. Chasing is often driven by scarcity mindset. The belief that this connection is rare, that this opportunity won't come again, that this person is uniquely irreplaceable. Scarcity fuels urgency, but abundance creates calm. When you genuinely believe there are other options, other connections, other possibilities, your behavior changes naturally. You don't grip tightly. You don't overinvest prematurely. You allow things to unfold. And here's the final turning point. When you stop chasing consistently, you filter your environment. Those who thrive on attention without reciprocation drift away. Those who value balanced dynamics step closer. Your social world upgrades. This is the satisfying payoff. Not revenge, not dominance, but alignment. You attract people who respect boundaries because you embody them. You create relationships built on mutual investment rather than imbalance. The moment you stop chasing, they start panicking. Not because you became manipulative, but because you removed certainty. And certainty is the comfort zone of complacency. When you remove it, people must decide how much you matter to them. And if someone doesn't respond to your absence, that silence is your answer. No more guessing. No more overanalyzing. Just clarity. So here's your challenge. The next time you feel the urge to chase, pause. Ask yourself what you're really seeking. Reassurance, validation, control? Then redirect that energy into your own growth, your own stability, your own direction. Because power in any dynamic belongs to the person who can walk away without emotional collapse. And walking away doesn't always mean physically leaving. Sometimes it means emotionally detaching from the outcome. Stop chasing, not to win them, but to win yourself back. And watch what happens next.